Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it. I want to start out by thanking everybody that's on the call this morning for taking the time out of their busy days to join us for this webinar this morning. We have a really great program topic lined up here that we're definitely excited to share with you today. Jacci See of First Weber in the Real Estate Negotiation Institute, also known as RENI, is joining us to present the 7 Principles of Persuasion, as you see on your screen there. Jacci brings her 40+ years of experience as a broker and an agent, and has been an instructor for RENI for the past 6 years, where she teaches this along with many other important negotiation tactics to agents all across the state. And so we thought it'd be great to have her here. When asked about her experience with RENI, Jacci says, "I teach for RENI because I enjoy having agents open the door to negotiation, the #1 need buyers and sellers cannot find online." So without further ado, we bring you Jacci See.
Good morning. Good morning. And welcome to this wide world of real estate in 2021. It's going to be a great year. I can just feel it. I entered this world as I first opened the door of real estate licensing in 1981, before many of you were even born. I passed the exam and became a real estate broker. And oh my goodness, I didn't know a thing about real estate or real estate sales. I had just taken the test. All of a sudden, there were at least 20 doors waiting for me to open, all of them having to do with some form of real estate. And so what I tried to do is learn as fast as I could, as much as I could, in what time I had. Today, I am inviting you to open the door to negotiating. Do you know what the #1 item buyers and sellers want from their agent? According to the National Profile of Home Buyers and Sellers, 99% of buyers believe that the negotiation skills are very important or somewhat important in the real estate agents. Yet buyers gave negotiation skills the very lowest satisfaction rating of all the agent skills and qualities. And only 5% of sellers want their real estate agent to negotiate for them. This is a good morning. I went out, walked my dog this morning, and the sun was shining brightly, and I thought that's going to be a great day for us to talk about real estate. How many of you would like to become a better negotiator? I guess it really doesn't matter if you've been in real estate sales for over 40 years or if you just got your license yesterday. Doesn't make any difference whether you think you know and have seen everything you know in real estate or whether you're new and anxious to learn. The one thing constant about real estate is that it's always changing. This past year with COVID, we definitely saw our need to change. And those who could change are still here. I've been teaching negotiation classes for over 20 years. And actually, I've been studying negotiation for probably over 30 years. I actually started teaching the Quick Start for the WRA in the mid-'80s. And that's a long time ago. My husband and I moved to Madison in 1992, and I sold my company in Rylander. And boy, suddenly, since I'd been teaching Quick Start, I had to apply it to me. I had to, since I didn't know anybody or anyone here in the Madison area. So one of the first things I did was I joined the Board of Realtors, which at that time was called the Greater Madison Board of Realtors. Same board that we have today, except it was smaller and more for just Greater Madison area. My goal was to meet as many of the agents that I could possibly meet because I knew that I would be eventually negotiating with them. And I wanted to see how we could get along, get to know them, and help make this industry better for all of us. I condensed classes that I had taken and began teaching my own negotiation skills workshop. And I taught that around the state. And in 2013, I took a class by RENI, the Real Estate Negotiating Institute in Milwaukee, called the Certified Negotiating Expert. And it was exactly what I'd been looking for in negotiation the whole time. So from there then, I joined RENI, and I've been teaching for them for the last 6 years. I'm one of 25 instructors, teachers with the Real Estate Negotiation Institute based out of Phoenix, Arizona. And I teach for them, as well as still practice real estate sales here in Madison. Today, I'm inviting you to join me in opening the door of negotiation. This is a door that will lead us to better serve our clients, better serve each other, and better serve our community. Negotiation is a life skill. It's a learning process and a fundamental skill necessary for success in our industry. Today, we're going to be talking about just one of the parts of the CNE class, Certified Negotiating Expert class, and that is the persuasion principles. How many of you received the danger report? Your broker should have that, but it's been a long time in our industry that we've been trying to up the professionalism of our industry, and I think that we are. In 2015, NAR came out with a danger report that said the real estate industry is saddled with a large number of part-time, untrained, unethical, and/or incompetent agents. This knowledge gap threatens the credibility of the industry. So the more that we learn, the more that we try to educate ourselves with different aspects that we should know and that our customers and clients should be able to expect from us, the better off our industry will be, as well as us. So let's get started on the principles of negotiating. There are two ways to persuade or influence others. One is the desire for gain, and the other is the fear of loss. Which is the most powerful approach? I don't know if you can do a show of hands, but maybe Janine can see. But how many think that desire for gain is the most powerful? How many feel that the fear of loss is more powerful? Actually, the fear of loss is 2.5 times more effective at motivating others than the desire for gain. People are typically more persuaded by the fear of losing something that they already have versus gaining something that they don't yet have. So in a real estate purchase, what is the buyer or seller gaining or losing in the broadest sense? It's the dream of owning a home. And this is a very, very powerful motivator. So you can choose whether to position something as a loss or a gain. You might say, as an example, my buyer's offer is $50,000 below your seller's asking price, but it's $75,000 above the purchase price your seller paid last year. Your seller trying to get a couple of $1,000 more may cost them the $500,000 they're asking. It might cost them the entire $500,000. Another way that we can, in desire for gain, structure something might be, Mr. Seller, if you price your home within the parameters we discussed, you should be on your way to retirement before you know it. Or if you price your home competitively, you'll be able to sell quicker and move into your next home. Maybe move in before school starts like you wanted. The principle of the fear of loss, on the other hand, you could say, Mr. Seller, if you overlist that much, you'll be making your competition look good. and ultimately sell at a lower price. Or, Mr. Seller, if you overlist your home, you will likely lose the very buyer who would buy your home because that buyer won't be looking in that price range that high. So, as we now look at persuasion principles, we're going to go into, there's many, over a dozen scientifically proven persuasion principles. These will all help you make more effective at persuading or influencing others if you use these approaches when you interact with others. So what we're going to do is today we're going to go on to, and RENI has identified 7 persuasion principles that we use in our class. And we put them into the acronym of success. And so each letter in success will stand for a different persuasion principle. And hopefully this acronym will make it easy for you to remember each one. So just to kind of start out with success, the acronym S, first one is for self-interest. Next is uniqueness, contrast, communication, exchange, sameness, and sound logic. So we're going to review each principle and then see how these principles can be used in your real estate negotiating situations. Our first interest is for the self-interest. And the challenge is you must convince something that what you want them to do is in their self-interest. That's the number one driver. A quote from Ben Franklin back in 1734. So this is not a new concept. Ben Franklin said, people will normally do what you perceive, people will normally do what they perceive to be in their own self-interest. I repeat that. People will normally do what they perceive to be in their own self-interest. You made a decision to come here to this class. Your self-interest was to take this class. So as persuasion, as negotiators, we are looking to convince them that what you want them to do is in their self-interest. So when we're negotiating with another party, you want to maximize your outcome while adequately satisfying the other party. You need to understand the other party's interest, and that understanding allows you to focus on adequately satisfying them or minimally satisfying them, but you don't have to overly satisfy them. Understanding the other party's interest and needs allows you to put together an offer that will adequately satisfy these needs. So your offer should consciously address the other side's needs. That's why collaborative negotiators, people that want to work together, start with identifying and understanding needs and interests. And these needs and interests might be basically from where they stand, what's their reasoning, what's their stand, what do they say, what's that area that is telling them, where are they getting that from, and what's the motivator. We discuss that much more in detail. The SAM is what we call it in the Certified Negotiating Expert series. But their self-interests can easily be, people will do what they perceive to be in their own self-interest, whether it's the dollars, their family needs, timing, when they have to sell or when they have to buy, escape. Maybe they're looking to go to a different place, move up, move down, escape where they are right now, and their lifestyle. In using the exercise principles, And some suggestions with them would be getting the seller to accept a buyer's offer. You might say, our buyer's offer provides you with a very attractive price, flexible timing in your closing, and extra protection in several areas. Your seller should accept my buyer's offer because the price is very fair. My buyer can close quickly, like your seller desires. And these are things that you could use. Why should the seller accept your buyer's offer over competing offers? Getting seller to pay your fee might be a persuasion. We are working with a listing as a listing agent to list the property. You might say, Mr. Seller, you should ask yourself this question. Does your agent's fee provide the proper incentive to do the very best for you? Kind of a persuasion principle, not dealing with real estate, but using the different ways of planning this or saying this. If you marry me, I will make you the happiest man in the world. Versus, if you marry me, I will be the happiest woman in the world. We want to satisfy their self-interest. I will make you the happiest. I want you to think about these principles and how you use them in your everyday life, whether it's with negotiating in real estate or negotiating within your family and friends. The next principle that we're going to look at is that of the uniqueness. That's what the U stands for, of success. People want something more if it is perceived to be unique, limited, or scarce. The more unique your offer, the value potentially, the greater the value potentially. When we moved here, I was, and still am, a fan of Frank Lloyd Wright designs and houses. And I had the opportunity to list a very unique home in Jefferson, Wisconsin. And that was probably back in 93 or 94. It was kind of a U-shaped house, unique, on a golf course, built around, at that time, it was over almost 250-year-old oak tree. It was incredibly unique. And it had over $100,000 done to it by a special architect, remodeler out of Chicago area dealing with Frank Lloyd Wright houses. And it also had, I'm sorry about that. It also had, it needed at least $100,000 more. And so as a result, I listed it back then, and that was a dear price, $200,000 for the house. The only means of advertising that we had at that time was basically City Country Homes, if some of you remember those. We didn't have internet. We did some advertising in the newspapers. But the City Country Homes, I had the picture of this on the front cover for 1 month. And I got letters from all over the country. How dare I price it so cheap? Or how dare I ask for it too much for this? Well, it turned out that I ended up finding a buyer, a doctor, a single person who wanted something unique. And that person is still in there today, and she's been collecting authentic, actual Frank Lloyd Wright furniture to go in it. So it's a fabulous place. But the uniqueness is what drew her to it. Uniqueness is what ended up with the advertising and all of the people saying, you know, how can you do this? It's a scarcity. Why are you doing it for this expensive? Anyway, it's with different ways of negotiating with that. But I kind of think about uniqueness when I think of that property. This principle is used with deadlines to make something unique. This property is available for limited time only, this weekend only. Or you must purchase by March 31st. If you combine persuasion principles and start combining the uniqueness approach with the self-interest principle, you can be even more persuasive. You'll see advertisements on TV with order within 24 hours and receive a free month's supply. So what primary motivator is with this approach? Is the fear of loss or losing the free month's supply? So what we need to do, and what we're looking at with unique principle, is how is it on a seller listing, for example? We could say it's the only house in the neighborhood for sale with a 3-car garage, or with an exposed finished walkout lower level, or more square footage, making that the uniqueness principle. In a buyer's offer, in a multiple offer situation, you might make it unique by the buyer is willing to pay up to $10,000 towards seller's closing costs. They might be willing to pay for an appraisal gap protection. What can you do to make your buyer's offer unique if you're working with a buyer? You might waive appraisal or inspection contingencies. You have to be really careful when you do these things. But depending upon your buyer and depending upon their desire and their ability, these are things you could use. It would be all cash, flexible closing date to meet the seller's needs. You could do a leaseback option. These are ways you could persuade your buyer, or at least offer suggestions for your buyer to use more of the uniqueness principles. You could say, buyer, you said this is the one house that meets your family's needs the most. While you have other options, none of the other homes meet your needs as well as this one. That makes it a unique home for you and your family. Only you, Mr. Buyer, can decide how much that is worth to you and your family. So if you lose this house for a couple of $1,000s, how will you and your family feel? The next principle we're going to look at is the principle of contrast, C in success. This principle says that you should compare what you want from someone with something else that makes what you want look even more reasonable. I'll repeat that. You should compare what you want from someone with something else that makes what you want look even more reasonable. The more reasonable you appear to be, the better the chances of getting what you want. Compare what you want with something that makes your choice look clearly better. You have to magnify the contrast, but you've got to remember to be realistic. Here's an example from Robert Cialdini. He's one of the authors that books that we recommend in our classes. And he gives us an example of contrast, where a Boy Scout knocks on the front door and says to the woman who answers the door, "Would you like to buy a $100 raffle ticket to win a car?" And the woman says, no, thank you. And the Boy Scout says, "Well, then would you like to buy 5 $1 candy bars to help support my troop?" The odds of the woman saying yes to the 5 $1 candy bars goes way up after she says no to the $100 raffle. Because in contrast, the $1 candy bar looks a lot more reasonable than the $100 raffle ticket. And another suggestion is notice the choices you're given for a charitable contribution request. We get these in the letters in the mail almost every day. Usually it's something that if you can give $500, $300, $100, $50, $25, you start looking at that and you say, well, you know, it's really a great cause. I can give $25. Again, compare and magnify. They are comparing and magnifying the contrast. So if we look at the buyer's offer price, in contrast and comparing, you might say, the buyer's offer is 97% of the list price compared to an average sale price in this neighborhood of 95% with past solds. You could say for the listing agent, to a seller, as a listing agent to a seller, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what have you really saved? If you save $4,000 on the fee you pay your agent, and you then turn around and sell for $20,000 lower because you hired an agent who can't negotiate for himself or herself, let alone negotiate for you. Potential uses are that buyer closing could be in half the normal time. Contrast could be buyer's qualifications versus other potential buyers. Comparing yourself to other agents. You might say, I have more experience, better training, better results than other agents. You could compare, I live in this neighborhood. I have sold more homes in this neighborhood than any other person. Or you could say, I'm brand new. I have all time in the world to serve you, Mr. Seller, to be able to market your property, to do things that need to be done to get your house sold. Use this contrast principle and think about it, because the more reasonable you appear to be, the better the chances of getting what you want. But you compare what you want with something that makes your choice look clearly better. The next principle that we deal with is probably my favorite, and it deals with communication. I've studied a lot of different types of communication ways. Actually gave several half-day classes on communication and how we can communicate better. There's still always things to learn about it, and it changes. When we first started out with doing this, we didn't have email, we didn't have text. So that whole bottom line they're seeing there, the email, text, letter, forms of communication was non-existent. Well, except for letters, I'm sorry. Effective communication involves three elements: the words you use, your voice, including the tone, inflection, and rate of speed, and your body language or nonverbals. When you meet somebody, kind of assess that, start thinking about it. And in communication, if they're speaking softly, one of the first things with communication is for you to maybe tone down a little bit. Maybe you're not going to speak as softly as they. But again, you don't have to, you can come down a little bit. The same with somebody who's really loud and boisterous. You might then beef it up a little bit and be a little bit louder, be a little bit more assertive in communication with that person. When words in effect will be 10% of your effectiveness, your voice can be 30%. Your body language can be up to 60 to 65% of your overall effectiveness in communicating or negotiating. So you can see how with face-to-face, you are bringing all of these together. To maximize your effectiveness, you should strive to use all three elements if possible. And that really only works face-to-face. Now, in written negotiations, and I guess I want to backtrack just a bit, Think about your last offer that you presented. How did you do that? Did you send it over email? Did you send an email and have a text with it? Text them, hey, I'm sending this offer over to you. Did you accompany it with a letter? Did you do any audio message with that? Did you call the agent and say, hey, I've got an offer for you. I'd like to present it to you, and what would be the best way to do that? So you can present your offer more effectively in person than over the phone or in writing. Now, that's going to be a little bit harder today with COVID. People don't want to meet necessarily face-to-face. But what are some ways we could do that? We could do a video email. We could do a webcast. We could do Zoom. We could do FaceTime. You could also think of making a video and send it on over and actually present the buyers, and the buyers presenting their offer, telling something about their offer. Sometimes you might have to, this communication would be, how do you persuade the listing agent to let you present your buyer's offer face-to-face to the seller? So this is a right that we have. Mr. Listing Agent, my client has instructed me to present their offer, your offer directly to your client. I know you try to do everything you can for your client, and I would appreciate your allowing me to do the same for my client. In considering too, I'm also okay basically with your presenting, and the other agent may say presenting, but they might have some stipulations on it. Presented face-to-face, yes, I will meet with my sellers and I will show them your video or your presentation. Now today that we're not able to meet so much face-to-face. What conditions would you put on a buyer's agent to present to your seller in person? And that might be one of them. It might be, we can't do it in person today. The sellers are not allowing that. However, can you do a FaceTime? Are you open to that? You might suggest that on the other side, the other way. So that in effect, we're trying to negotiate, not necessarily have them negotiate with each other, but at least they can see the communication is there, how they can relate, how the buyer can offer and what can offer to make his offer better to the seller. So to minimize or to maximize your effectiveness, you try to use all three elements if possible. And you can more efficiently present your offer in person than in phone or writing. So think about how you present it, and especially in these days of multiple counteroffers. What are you doing? How are you communicating? Probably to the other agent, more importantly. How are you communicating your offer and your buyer's needs to the best that you can? Our next principle is called the principle of exchange. And it's also known as the principle of reciprocity or concession principle. It's based on the almost universal principle that when someone does something nice for you or gives you something, you owe them something of equal value in return. So in a negotiation, if you're going to agree to what the other party has asked for, there's a normal sense of obligation from the other party to give you something in return, but you have to ask for it. So while you protect the client's interest, you combine the value elements. And this art of concession or exchange, making and taking, always try to get something in exchange for offering something. And a real estate example might be, Mr. Seller, we've given you a full offer, exactly what you're asking for. but we would like to have the refrigerator and the washer and dryer included. Another one might be, my buyers have agreed to your seller's counteroffer, but only if your seller will agree to an earlier closing date. Or might be something else, or only if the seller will agree to your buyer's offer, but wants you to pay for the homeowners association fees. So making exchanges or trades, always get when you give. One of the things not in real estate, though, is like a fine dining restaurant. An example of this could be where the waiter or the waitress comps either the appetizer or the dessert. Wow, that's really quite nice. That's when we used to be able to dine indoors. But the customer feels obligated maybe to tip a little higher. Maybe in an exchange in real estate, getting information from the other agent. You might say, here's what's important to my client. Then give 2 to 5 items that are important to your client. And then you might ask, tell me what's important to your client. When you present an offer, call the agent before doing, ask what's important to the seller. Go first with this so that you can hopefully get something, give them what they want within reason, and you can try to get something in exchange for that. You're $10,000 apart using the exchange principle on an offer. How could you bridge that $10,000? You might throw in personal property from the seller. You might change the closing date. The buyer may not ask for any repairs from the seller, maybe up to a certain amount, $5,000, anything under $5,000, the buyer will take care of. Any of these things could be an exchange whereby you're combining the value elements, you're making and taking. What would you ask for in exchange for taking a 60-day listing? Let's say you dealt with a for sale by owner. You have a 60-day listing. They want you to only give it to you for 60 days. You might say, well, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if I agree to take your listing for 60 days, would you agree to the following? To price your home where I tell you. To leave your home professionally staged. To have your home inspected upfront by a licensed real estate inspector. You could offer the buyer closing cost support, or perhaps maybe offer the buyer agent a bonus. These are all different things you could do. Ask for an exchange for taking a 60-day listing. In effect, what we're doing, this whole process of exchange, is a give and take. The last principle we'll deal with, well, not the last, the last of the 2 S's, is the sameness principle. Principle of liking or association. People like to do business with people who are like them, with people they like, or people they want to be associated with. This is also known as the principle of liking or association, and it's used in building rapport. So find a connection, and these connections could be family, could be job, could be hobbies, sports, like the Green Bay Packers, yeah, hometowns, military, volunteer work. I've been a realtor I've been a Rotarian, since probably over 20 years. I'm not in a Rotary to get business, but because I'm in Rotary, I have done business with other Rotarians. It's a sameness principle. People like to do business with people who are like them, with people they like, or people they want to be associated with. So Research shows there are three things that cause people to like you: compliments, cooperation, and connection. These three factors cause people to like you. So you might say, in presenting an offer, my buyer thinks your seller's home is the nicest. It's lovely. Cooperation might be, my buyers understand your seller's dilemma and are more than willing to find a mutually agreeable solution. And connections or similarities. It might be a connection that you're from the same real estate office. You've went to the same school. Your kids are in the same schools. You have a CNE or MCNE designation. Connections between the buyers and sellers, if you can find them, can really help with offers also. I've listed properties because the sellers and I both graduated from Valparaiso University. A little bit of a uniqueness in this area that we're not UWM, but although UW-Madison, although all four of our children have graduated from UW-Madison, have gone there. We have the same number. Your connection might be dogs, cats, same type of car. Maybe your connection with a real estate agent that you're working with. Your connection is that, again, as I said, the same office, but maybe the number of years in real estate. You worked together in the past. So this principle of liking or association, and I'm going to take it one more step too. Let's say that 3 offers have come in a multiple offer situation. You've worked with one agent before. The other 2 you haven't worked with. You don't know them. Let's say the offers are all equal. Very, very much equal. Your seller has to choose one, or you have to help your seller choose one. You might say, I've worked with John Smith in the last few transactions ago, and it was wonderful. He was right there when I called. He answered every question. He fulfilled his promise. We had a great closing. You already know that. You have that connection. You have that association. What's the likelihood that you might want the sellers to go with that offer instead? It's just one of the possibilities. You're not making the decision, they are, but there is that connection. So, and this is kind of where you can say, how do you get to know the other agents? Well, the very best way is through our board, and maybe joining a committee on our board. I've been a member of the Realtor Housing Association for, let's see, since 2001. Was it the year that I completed my presidents of the Greater Madison Board of Realtor. I then stepped into the Realtor Housing. And it's been a fabulous committee, a fabulous connection. I invite, if people are interested, give me a call. We still can use more realtor bodies on this committee. We only meet 4 times a year. So it's a principle of association also in there, working with people that you know and like. And one way you can do this is through various committees, finding out how they are, how the agents act, what they're like, how it would be to work with them within our own association. Our last S, the last principle is sound logic principle. This principle says people are more persuaded by sound, logical reasoning than by opinion. Providing sound rationale will increase your odds of persuading others. Being fair is a reason. And most people want to be perceived as being fair. And And we find that with the sound logic, without reason, the chances of putting something together is 63%. With logic, with reason, it's 94%. Americans are generally very fair-minded. Who doesn't want to be considered fair and reasonable? I'm sure that none of you want to be perceived as being unfair in a negotiation. In the United States, fairness really is truly a cultural value, but it's not necessarily true in all cultures. So you have to watch out a little bit about that. Most people think that splitting something fairly is a 50-50 split. They'll say, let's split the difference 50-50, that's fair. It might be, but it may not necessarily be. Basically, another way to split something would be maybe more fairly is according to the contribution. So how do we get sources of the sound logic, reasoning? How do we get this sound logic? Well, we can get it from credible third-party references, which could be NAR, it could be our broker, could be our lender, could be a home inspector. These are credible third-party in real estate. Maybe an agent in your office that has worked with that other agent. Oh, he's great. Yes, he's really good. It's good to work with. Another would be testimonials from clients, other agents, appraisers. Another would be the social proof. And by social proof, we mean what's generally accepted in society, in our industry or culture. Tipping, for example, is generally accepted as 15 to 20% in the United States. Industry standards. Do we have an industry standard commission in real estate? No. No. But can your broker have a standard commission? A co-broke? Referral fees? Yes. So these are industry standards, and they are sound logic principles. So for a buyer to be selected, you might say, my buyer is fully approved through underwriting with no financial issues. The buyer is relocating into town and needs a home. The buyer will fully cooperate to get to closing. My buyer has a fabulous credit record. It's clean and the credit score is over 800. So they have no home to sell. These are all sound logic principles that you could do. When you look at sound logic with justifying a buyer's offer price, you could say on an apples to apples comparison of the seller's home with 3 identical comps, the buyer's price is more than fair based on square footage, kitchen upgrades, lot size, 3-car garage. Getting buyer to consider buying in a seller's market. Now that's interesting for us today. How many have buyers that say, well, it's just too busy of a market. Or too hectic, too tight of a market. I'm going to wait. You might say, yes, it's true. It's a seller's market. One reason to consider buying now is the low mortgage interest rates. Even though they're not expected to go up this year, we don't know. And I don't know how they could get much lower. So if you wait and the mortgage rates go up, your monthly payment will be higher. Or you'll have to put more money down to get the same low monthly payments you can get now. Sound logic principle in getting hired by a seller. You might say, I've listed 6 homes in this neighborhood over the last year. I live in this neighborhood. All of these homes have sold higher than any other home sold in this neighborhood during the same time period. Any of these things. But again, you have to back it up. It has to be true too. So being fair is a reason, and most people want to be perceived as being fair. What these all are, I mean, these aren't answers to everything, but it's one way of persuading, one way of negotiating that you can think of. These principles of success are skills for you to learn and practice. To practice every day in all your dealings, whether they're with your family or whether they are just for you as you practice real estate. Self-interest, uniqueness, contrast, communication, exchange, sameness, and sound logic. I hope all of this information will help you reboot this year. And I hope you're inspired to open many, many more doors in our wonderful, wacky real estate world of 2021. As we agents learn to become better negotiators for our clients and customers, our industry will become more professional and give better service, and in turn, make a better community. I wish you success in 2021. Thank you. Janine,
Thanks,
hi Ben, do we have time for any questions at all?
I think we do, don't we, Janine?
We do, and if anybody would like to enter a question into the Q&A or the chat, or if you want to raise your hand, I can unmute you if you'd rather just ask the question.
While we're waiting on that, Jackie, thanks for all that. That was awesome. I appreciate all the information you shared.
Thank you, Ben. This is just part of what you'll find in, and I guess maybe I'll just go on a little bit of RENI, if I can, the Real Estate Negotiating Institute. This was founded back in 2005 by Tom Heyman, who spent 25 years in a Fortune 500 company and dealt with training, dealt with negotiation. The principles that we have in RENI are from the Harvard School of Negotiation and the Wharton School, just for examples. And if you were to take those classes, even for a week, you'd be spending $5,000 to $6,000 for any of these classes on RENI. So Tom has condensed them. And as I said, there's 25 of us that teach around the country on this. Our mission is basically to make you the expert. And that's our goal, making real estate a fabulous, even better profession than what it is now. So these examples are things that you'll find in the Certified Negotiating Expert designation. And what that comes to, what they really strive to is better results for my clients and self, better professional representation of clients, more confidence in all your negotiations, greater appreciation for the importance of negotiating skills. So in these classes, you'll learn how to actually plan your real estate transactions, and you'll learn how to apply these persuasion principles in negotiating with your clients, customers, and fellow agents. So there's slides, there's all types of things. We do exercises, but the CNE class is a 3-day class, 4 hours per day. And on Zoom, I love it because I used to teach it in 2 solid days. Now it's 4 hours per day for 3 days. Again, generally it's from 10 to 12 and 1 to 3. So you still have time to do some calls and do things. Sometimes the classes have bumped it up that we only have a half an hour for lunch. And so we're done by 2:30. But Janine has a brochure, our flyer for that. I will be holding a CNE class on March second, third, and fourth on Zoom with 4 hours per day. And the CNE is a designation, the Certified Negotiating Expert designation, which is a prerequisite for the Master's Certified Negotiating Expert, which deals much more with generations, deals much more with negotiating on different cultures. It's a very fascinating class, and I'll probably be teaching that come this fall. The CNE, these designations do not require yearly fees. You take the class, you receive the designation, you are it. So you don't have to worry about having more fees every year to upgrade and keep the designation. Whenever we ask agents, and this is just within this last half year, whenever we ask agents what is their most difficult negotiation today, we've been getting a really quick response: multiple offers. So we have a new certified multiple offer expert class that I will be teaching on Zoom on February 25th and 26th. And that's for a total of 4.5 hours per day. And this class is designed to give agents a proven process that leads to better results with checklists, worksheets, summaries, scripts, and customizable forms. I always like to end a little bit with a quote from Albert Einstein. It's the responsibility of every human being to aspire to do something worthwhile, to make this world a better place than the one he found. And I think that's what we do in real estate all the time. We're helping people meet their dreams of home ownership. And now it's up to us. How do we even make it more worthwhile? How do we negotiate better to help them find what they want? I thank you very much. Feel free to contact me, or if there's any chats or anything like that later on, Janine, I'll get that and try to get back to everyone.
Awesome. Janine, I'm not seeing any chat, any questions in the chat box on my end. I would like to just take this opportunity to put in a plug for the Raskow Development Committee. We're looking for more agents to be involved in it. So if anyone is interested in getting involved in a committee, we'd love to teach you more about the development committee and what we do for the agent base. So if you're at all interested, please contact myself or Janine, Monique. But just in general too, if you're interested in getting involved in any kind of committee, please reach out. We'd love to put you in touch with the right people. So
our board is a great board. We've, it's been fun to be with it. And I can't believe now that it's been almost 20 years since, well, actually, no, 30 years. 30 years. Oh my God. Okay.
Sneaks up on you.
It was, and I was thinking about this morning, it's been 20 years since I was president of the board. That doesn't seem possible. That was in 2000. Was it? No, yes, 2000. So that was 20 years, okay. But anyway, I thank you for giving me this opportunity. It's been fun, I've enjoyed it. I look forward to working with my fellow realtors and in this year and making this year a fabulous year. Let's reboot.